So being likable is one of the biggest skills that you can have, and yet it's probably one of the most misunderstood topics out there that I've seen. Likability can essentially be broken down into three different factors. And the reason why this will be relevant is because it means that we can actually become more likable without following a robotic system, actually becoming likable in a way which is compatible to your personality. Everyone will achieve this paradigm in a different way, and without actually trying to constrict ourselves, put on a mask, perform any of these kind of things, which unfortunately, when I see videos talk about this topic a lot, it kind of encourages these things either explicitly or implicitly. So there was a time where I thought that I was very charismatic and likable. There was a lot of ego around it, and I can understand it completely. There was a lot of overcompensation, but actually in reality, I was quite abrasive to people, and I would annoy people, I'd piss people off. So to give some context, I used to want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu professionally. I was training 6 to 8 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week, and then the days off, 2 or 3 days, I would train 1.5 to 3 hours a day, and then I would go home and I would study. So I was doing it pretty consistently. Combat sports attracts the people that are a little bit more out there in their personality, a bit more risk-taking, a bit more intensity. And even amongst this crowd of people, I was probably seen as quite abrasive, quite out there, kind of just saying it how it is, but not necessarily in the way that you want to. And then I went to go work with my mentors, hypnotherapist, integral theorist. A lot of work in polarity was one of them, and the other one was a enlightened Buddhist nun, Sister Kante Kema, and she was teaching us meditation. And even after doing these practices for a year, in the later half of when we had moved, and our teacher had unfortunately got stage 4 cancer, and we were looking after her, but we were also running a business together, all about relationships. I was the hypnotherapist, so I would deal with people's unconscious beliefs and help them heal so they wouldn't hold themselves back in said relationships. Even after doing so much hypnotherapy training, so much NLP training, so much just general therapy, speech training, and then obviously my other teacher taught me meditation, and then my other teacher taught me integral theory, how to speak to people's motivations and fears and soothe them in a way, and also speak to their developmental level. Had such high training in communication, and I was a very warm person. I would say my heart was definitely in the right place. And when I was on calls, I was extremely professional and people couldn't really tell. But when I was around my friends, when I was more comfortable, I would still say things that would just push the boundary a little bit. I would push the intensity a little bit. I actually talked about this on our podcast, on the podcast, Self-Actualization Made Simple, episode 2. You can get into a real depth about how I used to push the intensity quite a lot. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is because you could say on one hand I was very likable, but on the other hand, I wasn't very likable, because there was one time when my best friend's girlfriend, one of my best friends still to this day, invited everyone in the house, everyone that I knew, to her birthday party. And the only person that didn't get an invite was me, right? And this was a real reality check, because people were telling me the whole time, my friends were telling me, my mentor was telling me, you gotta chill out, you gotta chill out, you gotta chill out. But there was something that didn't quite click. This is what made it click. Now, the power of likability is the fact that, first of all, you get invited to social events, you become more social, your life becomes more fun if that's what you really like. Then obviously in a professional way, if you just are more likable, there's this whole, Gen Z stuff. I mean, I am Gen Z, but there's this whole Gen Z stuff around being the personality hire, right? People literally get jobs because their personality is so strong, even if they're bad at their job, but because they're keeping the group morale up, they get hired. The power of likability. And then if you're running your own business or you're doing your own thing, it's very important to be likable. Doesn't mean necessarily likable in an out there way, but it means that when you actually can sit in front of somebody can trust you and they just like being around you. It just helps, okay? As you can see, this is something that did not come naturally to me, at least when it comes to this. So there's 3 different ways, pillars that have to be aligned correctly in order for your likability to be there. And it's principle-led, right? I'm not teaching you the 3-step way to get people to like you, because that's fake. It's not authentic to you. And also you just get outcompeted by people who are that guy or are that girl or are that person, right? Because if you're constantly following a framework without having the principles embodied within you, then might work on a YouTube video or it might work on a video call, but as soon as somebody spends any kind of prolonged time around you, they automatically know that you're just not that person and you're fronting, which makes them not trust you as well. The first category of it is enthusiasm. Are you enthusiastic about people? But I mean it in the way of how much are you responding to positive emotions. So I'll put it like this. When you're around somebody who's always responding to negative emotions and makes a big deal out of them, how does that person make you feel? Right? So if you're the opposite of that, being around somebody who, when I say enthusiastic, I don't mean they're high energy. It can be high energy, but it doesn't mean frantic. It just means that you're enthusiastic. You respond well to positive emotions, and you also bring positive emotions into the environment, into the social contract, into people's lives, right? Now, all of this comes from a place of groundedness, of course, but you need to have enthusiasm. Now, in the big 5 personality tests, what this would map to quite well is this idea of extroversion. Extroversion doesn't mean that you're an extrovert or an introvert. It's a personality trait, which is how well or how you respond to positive emotions. So if you have a high extroversion and a low neuroticism, it means you respond very powerfully to positive emotions. And if you're low in neuroticism, then what that means is you don't respond that badly to negative emotions. So in order to be likable, the first principle is to have enthusiasm. Allow yourself to have enthusiasm. A lot of the time we have subconscious blocks which stop us from appearing this way. For instance, if you're from England, like I am, there's kind of you don't want to be seen too out there. Okay? You don't want to be seen as a little bit different. You don't want to be seen as too happy or too jolly. Even though there's a lot of the jokes are very sarcastic and they're very about cutting the other person down or cutting yourself down. So if you have this kind of cultural conditioning, it's not just in English culture, it's in a ton of different culture, then this will be a problem, which is why I made my free shadow work guide, the most practical guide to shadow work on the internet. It's completely free. Go ahead and download it. It's in the comment below and it's in the description below. If you do that and you do the 4-week program in it, then you will change your life completely, because you'll be able to actually heal shadows in the most effective and authentic way possible. So that's how you get rid of blocks around enthusiasm. The second part is similar to enthusiasm, but it's a little bit different, which is positivity. Now, if enthusiasm is letting the other person know that you are enthusiastic about what's going on in the conversation, that you're enthusiastic in what you're saying, you're enthusiastic in what they're saying, then positivity means that overall you have a general positive outlook on the other person and on yourself, and then who else is in the environment too. So this comes from a concept, the unconditional positive regard, by Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers is one of the most important therapist figures in history, in my opinion. When he came out with human-centered therapy, it completely changed the game of how people do therapy, and it completely blew cognitive behavioral therapy out of the water, and they had to adapt, and they had to adopt some of his practices. Okay, now the theory of unconditional positive regard, which is the only thing that matters in a therapeutic sense, is, does the other person know that you unconditionally hold him in a positive light? Now, one of my other mentors, Kim Barter, talks about the unconditional loving witness, which is something that I prefer, but positivity is something which is easier for people to access. So if you ever feel like you're judging the other person, if you ever feel like you automatically have a projection on this other person, the other person can feel that, and it kind of creates this subtle pushing battle, right? Like, oh, this person thinks this, and I don't want him to overpower me, and then she thinks this, and he thinks that, and she said that. You don't want to ever be, as soon as you get into this kind of combative frame, which we're going to talk about in the third principle, your likability drops, because it's hard to like somebody who you're in a subtle kind of combat with, even no matter how small it is. So you got to make sure that you are holding this other person in an unconditional positive regard. Even if they piss you off, even if they annoy you, even if they say something that you disagree with politically, you can still hold them in an unconditional positive light regardless. And how you do that, an easy way of doing that, is seeing the child in the other person. Okay? Now, if we get triggered very easily, or if there's certain topics that trigger us, then there's not much we can do. Remember, we're also human too, we're learning. However, that is a problem when it comes to likability, and it will directly impact your relationships with people, which is why I suggest you go and work on those triggers with my free shadow work guide. Third principle is you need to come from a collaborative frame. No one likes it when somebody hogs the attention. You are not in a competition. When it comes to likability, which is what this whole topic is, obviously it's integrated in the whole framework of how I view relationships and how I teach that. Whether it comes to relationships or getting your ex back or working on office dynamics, which is something which, a big topic which one of my big clients who's working in corporate finance needs to go through. And it's helped him a lot. It's made him go from being somebody who's kind of seen as a little bit of a loose cannon, although very independent, very strong, to somebody who's just as independent and just as strong, but someone who's actually become a leader in his own right, not just somebody who feels like people wants to kind of follow, because people did want to follow him, because he would say what was on his mind and he would call out things that don't make any sense. But now he's able to actually be a real empowered leader in his environment without feeling like he's having to force that. And obviously that impacts his social standing quite a lot when it comes to corporate finance. So you need to come from a collaborative frame, okay? This is one of the big things I worked on this guy with, and I'm still working with him because there's obviously more room to grow. But when you come from a collaborative frame, you never want to feel like you're in a competition with this person. This is something which I had a little bit, and it's why I would become more abrasive whenever this other person was coming or threatening me with vulnerability or whatever. I would just go a little bit into competition. I would push them down a little bit. This is the absolute worst if you want to be seen as more likable. When you're seen as more likable, people trust you more. People like you more. When people trust and like you more, they trust you more with big decisions, with promotions. They suggest things to you. They want to get you involved. They start to rely on you emotionally, just like, and that's a two-way street, right? You don't want to just be somebody who is relied on and you can't rely on anybody else. But it gives all of these massive benefits. These do not come if you do not have a collaborative, supportive frame. So we have enthusiasm, the ability to express and respond and react to positive emotions without responding to negative emotions, because we'll have low neuroticism. Again, shadow work will help with that. Then you have the unconditional positivity frame, okay, which is where you genuinely hold this person in unconditional positivity. It creates so much trust and so much safety. As soon as somebody trusts or has safety or feels that they are safe with you, that relationship just becomes so much stronger in whichever way you want it to become. And the third one is collaboration. Do not ever get into debates. Do not ever really, doesn't mean, when I say don't get into debates, doesn't mean you can't have a healthy debate. What it means is it doesn't come from a place of competition. Like you're trying to one up the other person, like you're trying to be better than them. You want to make sure that you are supporting people. When people are with you, do they feel stronger or do they feel belittled? Do they feel more safe, or do they feel like they have to be constantly around guard because you're such a powerful presence? Do they feel empowered with you, right? These are all of the things that add to your likability. If you have those three pillars, if you get rid of the blocks supporting them, and you are able to embody these principles, which is something I go over a lot in my one-on-one work, then you will become this person. And when I say likability, really what it's about is becoming a leader, an empowered leader, not a leader where you're a dominator, where you dictate, where you are telling people what to do and you're the big dog, right? You can try that out if you want. Let me know how it goes. It doesn't last very long. Instead, you become like a leader of a strong democracy. When you become like this in your relationships, and remember, it's not just I'm the leader in all of my relationships. No, it means when it's your time to have that responsibility, then you can take it with real strength. That strengthens your relationships with them. And it also means that you become more confident in yourself and you can let other people take care of you as well when needed.